Welcome back into Foolish Club Media. I am Steven Serda. It's week 11 across the NFL. I'm joined by my guy, Rocky Magaña. Rocky, Chiefs fresh off their bye week. Andy Reid always dials up the best stuff off of the bye. We know about his record and everything they can do, and everything sets up for the Chiefs to, coming off of that Buffalo Bills loss where they got dominated from start to finish to, come off the bye, reset, fresh start, try to figure out what you need to do down the stretch for the rest of the 2025 regular season to handle business and do what you have to do, because we keep talking ourselves into believing that this team is talented enough to still get where they want to go. And I still think that they are certainly more talented than what they have shown this season. But they fall in Denver 22-19. The Broncos hit a game-winning field goal where in the fourth quarter, it's Chiefs have a lead. They go out and have an opportunity to go try to, make a play and go force like a back-breaking touchdown or something. No, 3-and-out. 19-19 ball game after the Broncos tie it up and the Chiefs score that touchdown, and then it's a blocked extra point to make it a 3-point game. So Denver ties it up 19-19. Chiefs come out 3-and-out again, and then Bo Nix made the plays that Patrick Mahomes did not today, and the Kansas City Chiefs fall to 5-5 on the regular season. This is now back-to-back extremely frustrating losses, and it's not just the defense, because I think there was bright spots from the defense today, even though they still aren't playing well enough. They still aren't making enough plays on that side of the ball. Right now, it's an offensive problem. And we've got back-to-back games now where I know Josh Simmons just making his return after that extended absence and gets thrown straight into the fire. But the offensive line wasn't even the problem today, Rocky. It was the play calling. It was Patrick Mahomes today. And there were some drops and some frustrating plays on the offensive side of the ball. Just boatloads of penalties on the Kansas City Chiefs today. And just frustrating and undisciplined play. And now this is a 2-game trend going against two of the top teams in the AFC, where they play this sloppy and they play this ugly. And I'm way more pissed about this loss than I was the Buffalo Bills loss, because even the Bills, like, for all the inconsistency the Bills have shown this season, like, they just got run off the field by the Miami Dolphins last week. And then Josh Allen responds today with 6 total touchdowns. They have not put anything together this season. At any point, they've had some opportunities where they look good and where you're like, okay, we can start to buy into the offense, Rocky. But that's been against the bad teams. When they play good teams, they simply do not look like they are as good as the teams that they are going up against. And that's been the biggest difference this season, and why I think this is different than any of the struggles that we've talked about with this team in the last few years. Like, they're sitting at a very frustrating 5-5 right now. And the division feels like it is all but lost after this game. We knew this game mattered even more than the Bills game did. Like, this was a must-win football game, and they go out there and put together one of their most sloppy outings of the season and one of the most frustrating performances I've seen from a team that can be very frustrating over the last several years. This is about as frustrated as I've been at any point in the last 5 years with this Kansas City Chiefs team.
I mean, it wasn't just the offense today. It was all three phases of the, just in coaching errors in all three phases, player errors in all three phases of the game. Mahomes red zone touchdowns, just breaking the back of this team, just stupid penalties, stupid mistakes. I mean, here's the thing, essentially two game-winning drives by Denver and late in the fourth quarter, and you do nothing to respond. And here's the thing, Bo Nix is not a good quarterback, and you let him make the plays that he needed to make to win the game. And he showed you through 3 quarters of this game that he can't move the ball. He's not a good quarterback. That's why it's so frustrating, is that this isn't a good offense. And you just, buckled at the end of the game against them. And then Mahomes, you had the situation, 4 minutes left, you have a 3-point lead or a tie game. Mahomes has the ball in his hands. You have 8 minutes left, 3-point lead, Mahomes with his ball in his hands, and you do absolutely nothing in the last 8 minutes of the game. Like, this is on Andy. This is on Mahomes. This is on the defense. This is on Spags. This is on Dave Tobe. Dave, like special teams is a problem. Like, you want to talk about the problems with this team? Like, it starts with special teams as well as the offensive play calling. 45 passes to 14 runs in the game. Like, it's just from top to bottom. Like, this team felt disjointed, and this is embarrassing to come out of a bye and play this poorly is embarrassing for this roster and for this team, for this organization that's supposed to play with some pride, who knew that this was a game that they had to win. And the Broncos like to make it slow. They like to make it messy. They like to grind it out. Like, that's their play style. But there's zero reason why the Chiefs should have lost this football game. There's zero reason for it. And I said in my pregame prediction that whatever team makes it to 20 wins this game, because I felt like it was going to be a low-scoring affair. Broncos made it to 20. I thought it was going to be the Chiefs. It should have been the Chiefs. I just, like, taking that sack on the cover zero. You knew it was cover zero, Mahomes. Trying to throw that out pattern to Brashard Smith behind him. Like, yeah, maybe if you're throwing to Hollywood Brown, he's going to come back and get that pass, but you got to know who you're throwing to. Like, you got to know the guy you're throwing to. You're throwing to the 7th round draft pick, rookie running back in that situation. Like,
yeah,
it was 3rd and 2. Run it. You have a better chance just tucking it and running it in that situation, right? Than throwing that pass to Brashard Smith. The situational football, I think, is the biggest problem of this team. Like, it's like they just suck at all form of situational football whatsoever. 3rd and 6, you have to get a stop to get the ball back so that Broncos don't win the game. And their number one wide receiver is being covered by Nick Bolton.
Yeah,
like, that's unforgivable. Like, this is just top to bottom. It was a total collapse.
And I'm at the point where I'm just questioning the decision making. I'm questioning, like, where this thing is going, because it feels like for the first time in years on the offensive side of the ball, they have the personnel to find the answers, right? Like Tyquan Thornton, 61-yard gain today. But I still, I don't have the snap counts in front of me. I'm going to assume he probably didn't play enough, even though we've seen that connection flash multiple times this season. And it's like, okay, that dude's got some real talent making plays down the field. Why is he not getting enough snaps? Why aren't they getting him involved more? Because they could use those explosives, because they're certainly not getting them from Xavier Worthy. But even that, like, Mahomes has Worthy deep a couple of times early in the game. It's off the mark. And that's been the story over and over and over again. I don't know how to fix Patrick Mahomes' deep ball at this point, because sometimes he rips it and you're like, okay, there it is. But it's not consistent, and it hasn't been consistent for years now. And so if you want to play that way, that's fine. But you also can't then shut it down when it's not working and you're having these quick drives and then say, okay, we're going to totally pull the emergency brake on this entire thing and try to go orchestrate a 15-play drive. And then you see Mahomes get frustrated and he throws a pick, and really threw a pick 6, but got bailed out by a penalty. And so it was really the second interception he had thrown on that drive. Like, it's just frustrating because, and maybe the standard is too high, and that's simply unfair because of what Patrick Mahomes has done in his career. It's just that even when the Bills are bad, Rocky, like, you still see Josh Allen, like, go out there and will them sometimes. And I don't know if this is like a carryover from the offensive line disaster that was last season that still culminated in you finding yourselves at a Super Bowl. But it feels like he's been off for a while now, and he's still getting by on the fact that he is such a special player and that he can make the plays when he needs to. And we've gotten some minor glimpses of that. But then this season, we've also seen him on multiple occasions make those kinds of plays, make that interception where it's obvious that he's just frustrated and he's forcing things. And those are backbreakers. Like, the Chiefs cannot come away at that moment of the game after that type of drive that took that long off the clock with absolutely nothing. And that's what happened. And that stuff has happened way too many times this year, man. Like okay. Hey, what do we do when the Chiefs win the toss? We know they're going to defer because they always want to get the ball first in the second half. What the hell does that mean anymore? All you do is come out of the half and go 3 and out. Like, what does it mean if you don't ever do anything with it? I'm just so frustrated because this team is better than last year's team. I truly believe that. Even if the pass rush has lost a step, even if Chris Jones has lost a step, I still think the secondary, when they're playing well, and I'll get to Christian Fulton and whatever that decision was later, but the secondary has shown that they can be good enough. The pass rush probably isn't good enough, but they can still do some stuff. And then Steve Spagnuolo, one of the greatest defensive minds we've ever seen in the sports, can dial some things up occasionally, but they got to win up front. The most frustrating thing is the inconsistency and how sloppy this team is. Like, it's more frustrating than past years where it's like, yeah, they're just relying on Mahomes to go be incredible and they just have dramatically inferior talent. The talent's there this year, Rocky, and that's what's even more upsetting about this team is that the talent is there, but the consistency is not. The discipline is not. I don't know what's happening there with the coaching because they were garbage on special teams today. They were frustrating as hell on defense, couldn't get off the field again on third down when it mattered the most. And then the offense, when the game's on the line, doesn't do anything. They don't accomplish anything. And that's how you lose close football games. They've been living on the edge of this for a long time. So maybe there is something in the idea that this stuff just runs out. But Mahomes is still too good for me to believe that. This team is too talented on the offensive side of the ball to be sitting at 5-5, and the defense is good enough that they shouldn't be struggling this way. And it's so much more frustrating to still be sitting here having the same conversation that we were having after the Buffalo game when they're coming off of a bye week. Like, I can't describe how frustrating that is, and that we're still having the exact same conversation that we were 3 weeks ago when they lost to the Buffalo Bills, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was.
It's so annoying. It's so annoying that they like the fact that this is like Andy Reid after the bye used to be like a guaranteed win. And this is embarrassing on all levels to the organization. And like, it's the fact of the matter is for too long, we made it be, okay, Patrick, go out there and win the game at the end for us. Right. Like too many one-score games. Patrick, you're going to go out there and will us to victory. And at some point that stops working. Like your diminishing returns get to a point where that stops working. And at some point you have to stop. Like you can't just say Chris Jones into the fourth quarter, go out there and be a one-man wrecking crew and get 3 straight pressures. Like, he's an old man now. Like, he can't do that. Like, somebody else has to do it. You can't just sit there and wait for Chris Jones to win you the football game on defense anymore. Right? Like, you got to step up. You got to make a play. Somebody else has to make a play. Like, them just getting a guaranteed 5 yards on every single run in the fourth quarter is disgusting because you knew that they were going to run the ball. Like Derek Nottie, Jerry Tillery, like Mike Pennell, like get Colin Saunders back in here. Give us somebody with some swagger and just some grit to them, because they're getting pushed off the ball and getting bullied up the middle. And it's there's this team. The problem with this team is that this team used to get slugged in the face and be like, okay, we're mother effing Muhammad Ali. Like, we're gonna outlast you, and we know we're gonna land the final punch. Now this team looks like an old champion that's been knocked down one too many times and can't quite slug his way back anymore. Like, he's trying, but they're just coming up short. Like, they're like this offense looks a little punch drunk, which is crazy because they have the most talented offensive, like the most talented wide receiver core that Patrick Mahomes has ever had. Like, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to move the ball. There's no reason you shouldn't be using the run to set up the pass. There's no reason that Nick Benito is teeing off on you and blitzing and coming around the edge. You don't run in his direction to slow him down. You know what I mean? Like, there's just like, or you don't, like, Even though Mahomes missed 3 straight deep balls in the first quarter, they were open. They were open. Fine, screw it. Keep taking your shots, dude. Like, don't stop altogether.
To me, and and I know Chiefs Twitter has been on this for a while. And I do think there's something to this, like the offensive side of the ball, and we can get in the defense and stuff too. And like, really, like I'm so frustrated with the Chiefs special teams. Like, they have been a net negative for a long time now, and I think we overlook it and I discredit it because they have like flashes of like, okay, they're good. And then Bucker I think carried a lot of that for a long time because he's been so good. And then when he's inconsistent, it stands out more, but their special teams just suck. But the offense is so frustrating because it just feels like, especially when you look at like, it feels like this team for so long, like you mentioned, has just been hey, Mahomes, go make something happen. Go do something special. And he's such a special player that he has been able to do that for a long time. But now, like, that stuff was okay when Marquez Valdez-Scantling and McCole Hardman are, the most explosive players that you have on the offensive side of the ball. It's not okay anymore. They have the answers. They have the answers to win at every level of the field now. And we know that for a fact. Like, that's what's so upsetting about all of this stuff is that then it comes down to, okay, well, it's a schematic thing. It's a play calling thing. And yeah, I think Mahomes can play better. And I think that Mahomes has developed some bad tendencies over the last couple of years, and then that catches up to you eventually. Sure, all of that can be true in this circumstance, Rocky. But what I really find frustrating about all of this is that you see consistently the best play callers in all of the NFL change things up and do things different. We see Sean McVay reinvent himself all the time. The Rams reinvent themselves offensively based off of what they have available and what they can do best. And we see them do that regularly. And Kevin O'Connell, like, we've seen him do this. It doesn't matter who is the quarterback for them. We've seen him do it and change it up and make it work. And now it stalled out a little bit with JJ McCarthy, but maybe they finally hit a quarterback that they just couldn't get enough out of. That's fine. But it's like, I know Andy Reid is capable of making these adjustments. I know that they are. And then it comes down to like your offensive staff. And it's like, okay, well, maybe there does need to be a shakeup there, because that's the problem with Andy is Andy's always been too loyal to his guys and he doesn't make moves on the coaching staff. And I do think it would be good for the Chiefs to get some young blood in there. Like, I understand Connor Embry is a young coach, but we need like a young offensive mind in there who can push the boundaries a little bit and like actually find ways to get these guys the ball, because we see teams do this in the NFL all of the time. And it feels like the Chiefs have flamed out offensively right now. Like, they're just stale and it's not working the way that it's supposed to anymore. And when you have all of the components for it to work the way that it's supposed to, and you can literally do everything that you want at every level of the field, and you have the quarterback who is the best, like, chameleon quarterback in the NFL who can, you want me to be high flying? I can go do that. You want me to be to test short, intermediate, test the middle of the field? You want me to rip these things to the sideline? You want me to go on 15 to 19 play drives that take off 9 minutes of the clock? I can do all of that. I can be the most cerebral quarterback in the NFL. And then you have an offensive line that, like, the offensive line wasn't perfect today by any stretch. You're going against the best defensive line in the NFL this season. The Broncos defensive line gives everybody problems, but it's not like they were overwhelming. It's not like they were totally dusting the Chiefs offensive line. The offensive line was good enough to win today. They just didn't have any answers on the offensive side of the ball. There was just nothing that was surprising. There was nothing that was exciting. It was all just frustrating. It was all the same old stuff that we've seen all season long. And that's not excusable coming out of the bye, dude. Like, what were we working on over the bye week? Like, this is a must-win game. You're not going to win the division now because you just went to Denver and acted like you didn't think this game was that important.
100%. And like, that's the whole thing. It's like you had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, and you came out with like the most vanilla offensive game plan that like there's nothing special about what the Chiefs were trying to do today, right? Like you didn't scheme anything up, and they were out their best cornerback. It felt like early in the game they're like, okay, Pat Surtain's out. We're gonna test them and stretch the field. Guess what? You won over the top. What you wanted to do was working. You just had to stick with it, man. And then when they started getting pressure on you, then run the ball, and then go back over the top again if you want to go over the top, or go pass across the middle. Like they just didn't try to work the middle of the field nearly enough in this game. It's so like they on offense. It's like what went wrong. Everything went wrong. Like Pat Mahomes played like crap. They called a terrible offense. They didn't run the ball enough. There were stupid penalties by the offensive line. Like pick your poison on what went wrong, right? Like Rashee Rice had 2 crucial drops that he should have had down the field. Really, like besides Tyquan Thornton, like Tyquan Thornton's the only person who was like a true dog in this game. Like the only person on offense that I don't have anything to say about is Kareem Hunt and Tyquan Thornton. Those are the only 2 guys that fully did their jobs in this game.
Well, and before we move over to the defensive side of the ball, like Kareem Hunt had a nice day. If it wasn't for Travis Kelce, like going in the time machine and, delivering that like back-breaking, hey, I'm gonna shed a defender and I'm just gonna rumble to the end zone type of touchdown, like this game would have been even more frustrating because Kelce just took over that drive. Like Kelce was the reason that they had any offense at all in the second half, and he finishes easily as their leading wide receiver. He's got 9 receptions, 91 yards, and that touchdown. Then Thornton's got 1 catch for 61 yards. Was a monster moment in the game. And then Rashee Rice finishes 6 catches, 38 yards, and he maybe had 1 of those catches in the second half. If he had any catches in the second half at all, he was totally erased in the second half of this football game. And then, Worthy gets a couple of looks. Hollywood gets a couple of looks. They're able to draw a couple of PIs on Riley Moss. Shout out Ron Hughley, who absolutely called that on Friday's episode of Show and BK. But like, I don't care about pass interference penalties, man. I want them to complete things downfield. I want them to actually be an explosive offense. And Tyquan Thornton needs to play more. I don't know what the hell is going on here. He needs to be on the field more than Hollywood Brown does. I'm sorry. And if Xavier Worthy's not healthy, then he needs to be on the field more than Xavier Worthy does right now. Because Worthy has not been a positive for the offense for a vast majority of this season. And I still think Xavier Worthy has untapped potential. I still think he's a much better all-around wide receiver than anyone is going to give him credit for. But suffers a dislocated shoulder 3 snaps into the season, has had this nagging ankle injury now for weeks. And it's like, if he's not totally healthy, we got to figure some stuff out because it's not working. He's not a net positive for the offense when he's on the field right now. And Tyquan Thornton has been a positive for the offense, but he's not getting any snaps now. And so when they're putting him out there, they're just like, hey, just run deep and see if you can get open. And Mahomes has managed to connect with him a few times on some of these things, and they've been explosive plays. He's been the most consistent explosive playmaker for them this season. And then Rice is obviously going to have better days ahead of him. This is one of the best defenses in the NFL. And clearly teams now are like, oh, okay, we just don't want Rashee Rice to catch 11 passes for us and go for a $110 and a touchdown. And that's fine. Travis Kelce steps up and has a big performance in the second half, but you have to have other answers on the offensive side of the ball. And sometimes that happens with your top wide receiver. Like, I'm not going to totally knock Rashee Rice. He also dropped An awesome throw by Patrick Mahomes where he escaped pressure and Mahomes launches it. Should have been a big gain, and Rice just dropped it, like just flat out dropped it. And so that's frustrating. But sometimes you have those kinds of games. I still think Rashee Rice is one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. I still think he's a star, and he's going to have better days ahead of him. But when you're the number one guy on the team, the best defenses in the NFL are going to do everything they can to take you away. That opened things up for Travis Kelce in the second half, but somebody else has to make a play, because then as soon as the Broncos defense knew, okay, well, Mahomes is just going to keep looking to Kelce because nobody else can do anything, then Kelce couldn't catch a pass. Like, it's just so predictable now, and they just have too many guys. Like, it shouldn't be this predictable on the offensive side of the ball, and it's just so frustrating, because I truly believe, like in my heart, Rocky, this team is better than 5-5 right now, and they should win some of these games against some of the top teams in the AFC, but they have not been good enough this season to win any of these games. And now I'm questioning whether or not we shouldn't just be reassessing this entire season, because now you've put yourself in a situation where the division's probably off the table. And if you don't actually start doing some work, you're not even going to be a postseason team. I still don't think that's the case. But, like, dude, how long are we going to keep doing this dance? Like, how long are we going to keep doing it when they keep showing us week after week they're more consistently this team than they are consistently a team that can go out there and beat anyone in the NFL?
Well, here's the thing: is it's honest to God, this game's also an indictment on the front office that Brett Veach did not close the Breece Hall deal for a 3rd-round draft pick, right? Like, the difference between a 3rd-round draft pick and a 4th-round draft pick, Breece Hall in this game makes a world of difference, even as a receiving back, right? Especially because Hunt got dinged up a little bit. You don't have Elijah Mitchell in the game. You're not leaning on Brashard Smith. Also, the fact that they were supposed to allegedly have had a deal for Boy Mafe, and then it got pulled at the last second, and they couldn't find a way to get that deal pushed through either. Like, those are you have those two players on this team, and this game looks different. Like, I'm sorry, like those are two difference-making players at two positions that you need to make a difference. Like, George Karlaftis was playing really well in this game. Like, George Karlaftis had a really awesome first half, and he even had some plays in the second half, but there was no other help coming from the edge. How often do we say this, that George Karlaftis wins along the edge and then he's chasing the quarterback halfway across the field because there's no containment on the other side of the field? You know, like, George Karlaftis will win and there's nobody else there, you know? And, like, we got mediocre running backs, and Kareem Hunt is great for what he is, but Breece Hall is an explosive playmaking guy who can break runs and put actual stress on a defense. You know, who can actually move the pile, who can actually, explode through the hole and turn it, instead of a 5-yard run, that's a 12-yard run. You know, we just saw him go for 244 yards in a game on a really bad team. You know, like the fact that you could not make any moves happen at the deadline because you were trying to hold your picks too close to the vest is a problem. The fact that the Chiefs have
and sorry, like, that's even more frustrating when you watch the impact that Jalen Phillips had for the Eagles in his first game. Like, this is Travis Kelce's last ride, right, Rocky? You got a star rookie left tackle. You got the best receiver core that you've had in years. What are we hanging on to mid-round draft picks for? And the idea was, the Chiefs have contracts coming up. Okay. So, well, you just gave a bunch of money to Creed and Trey and to Nick Bolton and to George Karlaftis. Does that mean that, now you have to give a bunch of money to Trent McDuffie? And I think Trent McDuffie should have taken priority over probably any of those players. And he should still sign here in Kansas City. But the way that they dictated contracts and the way that they're playing this game with draft picks now, like, has me concerned, because the Eagles don't do that. The Eagles still think they have a Super Bowl caliber roster, and they went out and they got an impact player in a cost-effective way. And the Chiefs just sat back and said, no, we think we're all right, even though we're underperforming and barely sitting above 500.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible, and it's inexcusable, to be honest. And here's the problem also, is that there can't be any sacred cows at this point on this roster, right? Like, aside from Patrick Mahomes. Like, Patrick Mahomes is your lone sacred cow. And I'd even say he's your lone unmovable piece, right? At this point, you can't sit there and say like, do I love Trent McDuffie? Do I think that the Chiefs should re-sign Trent McDuffie? Probably. But with all the bad contracts that they currently have and all the big contracts they currently have and the holes that they now have, I mean, if you're looking at it, like Nick Bolton, sure, should they give him the contract? I don't know. Like, he's a good player, but he's not a true, it's not Bobby Wagner at age 38. You know what I mean? Even, right? You know, so like the Chiefs need at least 2 linebackers. The Chiefs need an entire interior middle of their defensive line. They need a pass rusher. They probably need another impact cornerback. They need at least 1 safety on the defense alone. And then they're going to need a tight end. They're going to need a guard. They're going to need a tackle on the right side of the football. They need a running back. Like, at this point, do you try to stockpile draft picks, right? If you're not going to trade your draft picks to win now, like you should have, then you're going to have, then you're almost at the point where it's like, at what point are you okay with just winning 9-10 games and missing the playoffs and being competitive? Or do you want to be a Super Bowl contender again?
No.
You have to take drastic actions. You either blow the crap up and do what you have to do to rebuild and reload actually and not get complacent, or you spin the draft picks like the Philadelphia Eagles had and said, we're going to push our chips in and we're going to go win the damn thing.
But like, Rocky, I still think like on the offensive side of the ball, I think the Chiefs are more talented than the Buffalo Bills. On the defensive side of the ball, I think the Chiefs are more talented than the Buffalo Bills. But what happened when he went on the road a couple of weeks ago to play the Buffalo Bills? They showed up and they played like they were a team that had been in that game against that team before, and they dominated that game. The Chiefs did not play like that. The Chiefs lost that game to the Jacksonville Jaguars because they played like, oh, it's the Jags. We can just go beat the Jags. And they got caught, and it caught up to them, and they lost that football game. This roster isn't totally lacking in talent. I do think there's been some poor planning, and I've been talking about this for years. Like, yeah, the Kelsey stuff, it was like, at least they're investing in this stuff, and they were out ahead of that stuff, and I think they inevitably got it right, even though they dumped a bunch of resources into it, which shout out Sky Moore. Sky Moore had like a 98-yard kickoff return today. So shout out Sky Moore, San Francisco 49ers.
Meikle too. Shout out Meikle.
Yeah, he had a nice one too. I think he actually got hurt in that game, but so hopefully he's okay. But the frustrating part about all of this is that, like, yes, maybe they haven't totally found like star players, but like we've seen Josh Allen overcome that stuff. And I think that Josh Allen, like, he's still managed to do that. And like, I think what this version of Josh Allen compared to the Josh Allen that we had like a few years ago is that, like, Josh Allen very rarely just shows up and doesn't perform. And Mahomes for a long time was the most bankable thing in the NFL, where it was like, if the Chiefs lose, it's not going to be Patrick Mahomes' fault. And sometimes, more often than not, lately, you can point to a lot of instances where it is kind of Patrick Mahomes' fault, or it's Andy Reid's fault, and it's the play calling, and it's that stuff, and it's poor decision making and things like that. And some of that probably is complacency and success and thinking like you can just turn it on whenever you want and go get it done. And so, like, there's all of that comes back to discipline. And this is just an extremely undisciplined team. Whereas they used to be able to go out there, and it was in a lot of ways, it was like the Belichick era Patriots, where it was like they would just make less mistakes than you. And then when they did make mistakes, Mahomes would help them overcome it. Now they just pile up mistakes week after week after week. And it's like they don't even give a shit. And that's unforgivable. That's coaching. Like that's stuff that you have to figure out on the practice field every week. And we're ranting now because we're frustrated. And the Chiefs sit at 5-5. Now they've got a Week 12 contest against the Indianapolis Colts, and the Colts are going to be fresh off of a bye week. I bet they'll figure some things out with that extra time as they get ready for this huge contest against the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know about you guys, but I'm certainly not confident the Chiefs are going to take down the Colts next week. But the defensive side of the ball before we get out of here. So Noel Williams played more snaps than he had seen all season, I believe, against the Buffalo Bills. Then you go into your bye, and the Christian Fulton stuff, we've already talked about it, Rocky. Christian Fulton is a net loss for the Chiefs this season. It was a bad contract. He has been injured. He is a player that, for a vast majority of the season, has had injury problems, but he was coming off of a career year, and he's the Steve Spagnuolo, like prototype cornerback, like big body guy, rangy, can like do well man-to-man coverage and all of that stuff. And then he's just been banged up, been healthy and active. And so coming out of the bye, they finally think Fulton's healthy enough. He's got enough like practice reps after missing like basically all of training camp on top of all of that. And finally, he's got enough reps. We're going to see what Christian Fulton can do, even though I think Noel Williams has been good. That doesn't mean he hasn't had growing pains, just like any rookie does, getting thrust into a starting role in the NFL. But Noel Williams has been a positive for the Chiefs when he has been on the field this season. And then this game, they decided to trot Christian Fulton out there, and Christian Fulton got burned multiple times in this game. Jalen Watson actually had a pretty nice game. For the most part, Jamari Connor, up and down. Trent McDuffie, just, typical McDuffie performance. He can't be all over the field, can't do everything in the secondary. But, like, at this point, I'm just like, if we're happy with what we've seen from Noel Williams, like, what's the point of forcing Christian Fulton onto the field? And it felt like they forced Christian Fulton onto the field today, and Christian Fulton got caught multiple times and put the Chiefs in bad situations multiple times in this game. And that's really frustrating because it feels like coming out of a bye is when you would want to build up the confidence of your rookie cornerback, who, in my opinion, has way overperformed expectations for him in his rookie season.
I don't know what the hell Steve Spagnuolo was doing in this game, period, to be honest. Like, he comes out and decides he wants to light up Bo Nix in the first quarter on the first drive. And on the first third down that they see, he has George Karlaftis on a wide receiver. Like what? That 3rd and 6 at the end of the game, you have Nick Bolton on Cortland Sutton. You have Christian Fulton. You're forcing them into the game. You have Chris Roland Wallace, who's a fine, role player, but he's in the game over Jaden Hicks. Like what is going on with this secondary and with this defense right now, with these coverage schemes that you're trying to roll out to try to generate pressure? Like, you really feel like he must have zero faith in the Chiefs' ability to create pressure, like traditionally, for him to do that in those situations. Like, he must know that he's getting nothing out of Ashton Gelati, getting nothing out of Jerry Tillery, getting nothing out of Derek Nottie, and that he has George Karlaftis and Chris Jones. And if those guys get double teamed or stopped, then they got nothing, right? Then he has to beat with numbers. And to his credit, that's true. Like, Omar Norman Lott, it sucks that he got injured, but I mean, FAU was a bust. Got nothing out of Ashton Gelati. Jeff Bossa, why did they even draft Jeff Bossa this year? Like
been a special teams player. That's it.
Like, you could have taken a running back with that. You could have taken another cornerback. You could have taken a lot of things that you could have used, because Jeff Bossa is not an impact player on this team in the slightest, right? And so it makes no sense. Like the drafting, like this, like Josh Simmons was a hit, but it sucks he didn't have him for the last month, and not gonna besmirch him for why he was gone or anything like that, because we really don't know anything, so I can't comment on that. But it sucks that he wasn't there for a month, and he's your only hit this year, right? Like, you haven't seen anything out of Jalen Royals. Brashard Smith, I know we're clamoring for him to get more time, but he really hasn't done anything, right? Like, he's like you can say you see flashes, but like,
he certainly hasn't done enough. Yeah, like, he certainly hasn't done enough to where I'd be like, let's give Brashard Smith 15 touches and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like this draft class isn't looking too great for Brett Veach. and especially on the defensive side of the ball. And at some point, we got to be like, what are you going to do to get more pass rush? You can't just say that Chris Jones is our pass rush. He's not our pass rush anymore. So go out there and get pass rushers. Right, Nick Bonito. Nick Bonito was taken in the 4th round, I think.
Like he was a 2nd rounder, maybe. But yeah, I mean, he was certainly not. He's a 3rd round pick, or no, 2nd round, 64th overall, back end of the 2nd round.
And listen, he was a great pass rusher in college, but he wasn't considered a blue chip prospect by any means.
Yeah, he's smaller pass rusher, but like athletic freak, and it's really paid off. And yeah, and it's really hard to find those guys outside of the 1st round. So I get that, and I get that like Omar Norman Lott like flashed occasionally prior to his ACL injury, like flashed occasionally that like hyper athleticism the Chiefs were hoping they were drafting. But also part of me is kind of like in that Omar Norman Lott draft pick, it was like, are the Chiefs just trying to replicate Chris Jones? Like, because that seems foolish. Like, trying to find another Chris Jones in the 2nd round and, like, hope that guy turns into a future Hall of Fame player seems kind of foolish to me. Whereas, like, you have a style, you have an athletic profile, go out there and just, like, take swings, and it's like, and then it's like, so they take Omar Norman Lott, who's kind of a Chris Jones, but lighter and more athletic, but like this kind of pass rush freak who played part-time in college. And then you take Ashton Gelati, who isn't even really a Steve Spagnuolo body type, but I guess has like a higher athletic profile than what they typically use. But then like Josh Uche, who the Chiefs wouldn't even put on the field last year, is having a nice season for the Philadelphia Eagles. And he is kind of a similar, like more athletic, slender, like pass rusher type body. And it just doesn't feel like they have really any idea what they're looking for and how to try to replace this thing. Like how to try to reset this thing, like the way the Rams did with when they knew Aaron Donald was going to hang it up soon. And so they go out, they get Jared Verse, but then they draft his teammate Braden Fisk in the 2nd round. The draft before that, they get Kobe Turner, who is an awesome interior defensive lineman. And it's like 3 straight drafts. They have invested heavily into that defensive line. And now they've got one of the absolute deepest defensive lines in the NFL with dudes who can give you problems from multiple positions. And then they went out at the trade deadline and said, what's our biggest weakness? Like our offensive line. It's not the best in the league, but it's also not the worst in the league. And Stafford's playing at such a high level, we can overcome some of that stuff. And so, okay, then we have these receivers too, who are just like otherworldly, and this play caller who can get guys out into space and he can make things easier on the offensive line and do all that stuff. And then they're like, okay, what do we need to do at the trade deadline? We need secondary. They go out, they trade, make a big move for another corner. What they do today against the Seattle Seahawks, one of the best teams in the NFL and one of the biggest matchups of the season across the league. Rams go out there, they win 21-19, and they pick off Sam Darnold 4 times. Like they went out there, they made a move, they addressed a need, and made something happen. That's the problem with the Chiefs right now. We knew exactly what this team's problems were ahead of the trade deadline, and they just sat back and didn't do anything about it. And so now there's absolutely no answers. There's nobody that's coming to rescue them in the postseason or down the back half of the year. It is solely up to the coaches to try to get more out of the players that they have right now. And it doesn't feel like the coaches have any answers. And that's why they're sitting at 5-5. That's why we're talking after a bye week about them losing another frustrating game that is much more of a must-win football game than that loss to the Bills, as frustrating as that one was. And we're even more pissed off now after a bye week because it doesn't feel like there's any answers. And the only way anything is going to change is if the coaches actually get something more out of the players that they have on the team. And so far, they have proven that they don't have anything to say about any of this. And they're just hoping it clicks at some point, because it's certainly not doing that right now.
My buddy Caleb James over at Arrowhead Pride just said a comment that I off of our feed that I thought was pretty profound. And I thought was a good point. He said the Chiefs are drafting complementary players to build around their core instead of drafting guys who are going to develop into starters and impact players themselves.
Yes.
And I think that's 100% true.
Jared Verse 100%. For the Rams is their new Aaron Donald. He's not Aaron Donald, but Jared Verse is an awesome player.
Yeah.
Like
you don't need a guy that complements Chris Jones.
Yeah.
You need a guy who's going to become your new Chris Jones. Yeah. You don't need a guy.
Jared was their replacement. He's an outside pass rusher, but man, he is awesome. He's not Aaron Donald. He's not a generational player who can move all across the entire defensive line. But Jared Verse is pretty damn good, man. Like, they've drafted a lot of guys that are pretty good, and they weren't doing that to build around Aaron Donald. They knew Aaron Donald was going to hang it up at some point.
100%. And then when they got Jared Verse, like you said, they went and got Braden Fisk. Why? Because Braden Fisk had 3 sacks in the ACC championship game. They said, okay, this guy steps up in big games, and he rushes the pass, the quarterback from the interior, and he plays good with our guy we want to build around, right? But we know that this guy's going to be an impact player himself, and he is an impact player himself. And so, like, this is frustrating. And if the Chiefs want to get back to where they think that they are, like they think that they're as good of a team as they think that they are, then something has to change from the top down. And I'm not saying fire Andy Reid, because Andy Reid, I think, is the all-time greatest coach in NFL history. But there is some of it of like the old ball coach has to learn some new tricks, and he has to look in the mirror and he has to reassess some things. And Andy is overly loyal to his friends. And like he had no problem.
It's a huge problem. It's a huge. It's better, in my opinion, when you have the younger coaches in the league like McVay and Shanahan and O'Connell, like, who have this constant overturn on their staff because they have young guys who go on and find jobs elsewhere. It's the Chiefs have gotten tied up in this where it's like, I'm fine with Steve Spagnuolo being here until he decides to hang it up. But especially on the offensive side of the ball, you need young people who can push the limits and who can test things out and who can try new things. And just as soon as Eric Bieniemy was ready to walk away, just bringing Matt Nagy back was such a bad move. And I think he's a fine offensive coordinator, but I hated the move when they did it. Like, just bring in a young guy who can actually like intrigue you and innovate and look at some things outside the box, because Nagy's just going to keep running it back with whatever Andy says he likes.
Especially when you had Mike Kafka in-house, who's now the interim head coach of the Giants, and it was doing some good stuff with Jackson Dart before, that things kind of went off the rails there. And it's like you had a younger guy in-house, but then also with Dave Toub, like he makes Dave Toub years ago an assistant head coach and the defense and the special teams coordinator. There's like Jesus will come back before he fires Dave Toub, right? But yet the special teams are an immense problem on this team. If there's a coach who should be on the hot seat, it should be Dave Toub. But Andy's not going to move off of his buddy Dave Toub. Andy's not going to he's not going to move off of Steve Spagnuolo, which I don't think he should, but he's not going to move off of Matt Nagy. And so he's just going to roll with these guys, and things are going to get stagnant. And here's the thing. I think that him and Eric Bieniemy having some friction was good for Andy. I think it was good because he had somebody to push back against him and to question things and to try to hold people accountable and to be a bit of a dick. You know what I mean? And we don't have that.
Bieniemy players would argue with Bieniemy, but they respected the hell out of him. Like,
to this day, they still talk good about him. Like Travis Kelce talks about him on his podcast all the time.
They respected the hell out of him because he held them accountable and he challenged them. Like, you dick around in practice, okay. Like, I'm gonna challenge you because that's not what we do here. We go win championships. Like,
and he made sure they were situationally ready. Like you say, he didn't call the plays, but they knew situational football and they were ready in those situational matchups. And that they respected him because you would hear them quoting him in their press conferences, like offhand, like things that he told them stuck with them, right? And so, like, I don't know, man. It's so frustrating to see that this thing just slowly erode over time to where it is now.
Yeah, it's just, and I'm not gonna be one of these people who's like, let's blow it up and fire the coaching staff and fire Brett Veach. I still think Brett Veach is a very good general manager. I think the Chiefs have drafted well. I think that they have done an incredible job of maintaining this thing. and that's why they've had so much success. But at the same time, it's really hard to maintain that year over year in the NFL. And that's why I go back to a team like the Rams, where it's like the Rams went all in for a Super Bowl, they got it, and then hit a reset, and they knew it was going to take them a couple of years. But what'd they do? They went out and drafted, and Les Snead's one of the best talent evaluators in all of the NFL, and they drafted stars. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, they go out and they spend money. They go out and they're aggressive on the trade market. They go out and make moves. So, and that's why, yeah, they might have won a Super Bowl a few years ago and then had a few down years where they were like still competitive, fringe playoff kind of caliber team. They're a legitimate Super Bowl contender in the NFC right now. They're one of the best teams in the NFL right now with a 37-year-old quarterback.
They were my preseason pick in the NFC to win the to go to the Super Bowl.
And they're a scary team. They're a scary, scary football team because their defense is really good and their offense can score in any way that they want to. The Chiefs just need some of that, man. You're so right, and Caleb is so right. Like, it's just so much of this stuff has been all about like complimenting Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. And at some point it can't be about that. It's got to be about what's next. Like, I know Mahomes is going to be here for a long time. And so it is still partially about that, but they've been getting by on this for too long, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because they haven't done a good enough job of trying to have an answer outside of Chris Jones. I've been talking about it for literally like 4 years, Rocky. Like, what are you going to do when that dude starts to slow down? Feels like we finally hit that spot. And Chris Jones had a sack today too, but like, he's just not at this age. He's not the kind of guy that can be that week in and week out, that total like game wrecker. And he still has his moments, but he's also still getting double and triple teamed a lot because nobody else on the defensive line really gets a lot of respect from opposing offensive line. So I really don't have anything else to say about this team. Another really frustrating loss for the Kansas City Chiefs. They sit at 5-5, and now they head into Week 12 against the Indianapolis Colts, who are also 8-2, one of the best offenses in all of the NFL. And I'm in no way confident about that matchup, Rocky, but we'll have everything you need to know here at Foolish Club Media. So thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. Thank you for letting us air our grievances and our frustrations with this Kansas City Chiefs performance. And, you know, we'll be back this week with a full lineup of shows to preview this thing because we're not giving up on this team. I still think this team has a long way to go, but I think they got to do some real soul searching this week, Rocky, and find some answers because this simply is not good enough. And it's okay for us to expect more from this team because we know this team is better than what we have seen from them through 10 NFL regular season games.
Yep, 100%. 100%. Yeah, and Juju Smith-Schuster needs to not be completely invisible in the offense. That's my last thing.
It would be nice to get a couple of chain movers from Juju here and there. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. We appreciate, as always, like, subscribe, follow, encourage you to check out everything on our podcast feed. Be back tomorrow, a couple of updates and stuff like that. Catch you up on the news, update you on everything you need to know as we try to turn the page after another frustrating Chiefs loss. We'll talk to you guys soon.